From schools, let's turn to the safety of guns that are kept at home. Tessa Gray asks, should parents who don't have guns in their homes demand to know which of their children's friends are gun owners?
Well, look, Tracy, that's a judgment for every parent to make. For example, as a parent raising my children, I wanted to know when they were going to visit, when they were younger, when they were going to do an overnight at someone's home when they were in second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh grade. I wanted to know if they had a swimming pool, whether or not it was locked, whether there was a gate. That's not an unreasonable thing for me to ask. When my kids were 14, 15, and 16 at the time when kids started experimenting, I'd like to know if they were having a party, whether or not the parents locked the liquor cabinet. That's just me. I don't think it's irrational for you to ask whether or not there are guns in the home and how they're stored. For example, in my home, I have 5 grandchildren. They're around all the time. I have 2 shotguns. They're locked in a safe. There's a gun case that is metal, and there's a combination. I could get to it really quickly if I thought my home was being invaded and to try to protect myself, but I keep the ammunition and the guns in that case. I don't think it's irrational for you to ask whether or not if there are guns in the home, are they locked, are they under lock and key, or they're in a place where children don't have access to it. You read every day about accidental shootings. Kids don't mean to do it, and I think there should be, parents who have children at home should also, I think they should have gun safety classes or education. So you know whether there's whether there's a bullet in the chamber, how to be sure that the gun is not loaded. I remember my dad was a hunter. I am not a hunter. My dad was a hunter, and he always had rifles. And I remember the first time he took me out in the field and to go, we were going to go bird hunting. We ended up not, for reasons that are too complicated, but he had to go back to work. But I remember him taking a shotgun, and we were in a field, and there was an old 3-rail fence in this field. And he took the shotgun, and he said, I want you to see something, Joey. And he blew, with one shot of the 12-gauge shotgun, blew the rail of the post and rail fence. Actually, it was a boarded fence. He just blew it apart because he wanted me to understand the power of what I had in my hand. And I think it's just as you teach your kids how to safely operate a car, you teach them how to safely deal with something that could do damage to someone else accidentally or to themselves. And so I think it makes sense. I think gun safety is an important element of what we're talking about here. We're not legislating that. We're not legislating that. But again, I think the more people become aware of what's going on, the more there's sort of the imperative to make sure that children who are curious do not have access to these weapons, and/or if they have access and you've trained them, they've been trained so they competently can handle if they're going out to bird hunt with you or target shoot. They should be trained, and I think most are, by the way. Look, there is a really healthy gun culture in this country. There's the state I come from, the family I come from. Guns were part of my father's ethic. My father was a responsible man, and so we were taught. You don't play with a gun. You don't handle it. You don't pick up a gun even when you know it's loaded and point. We weren't even allowed when playing cops and robbers to point a cowboy, a cap gun at someone. You just don't do that. And so there's certain basic things I think any family that owns a weapon, owns a gun, should be training their children about so that they don't accidentally get themselves in trouble.
So you mentioned not legislating around that. I have a question about that from Missy Carson Smith. She writes that she's the sister of a boy killed 27 years ago in a school-related shooting. Her own daughter went to her first play date, and weeks later, I found out there was an unlocked gun in the home. She asks, what are legislators willing to do to present the message that all parents should be conversing about the issue of gun accessibility at the household level?
You see, first of all, sorry for what you went through. Look, it's a complicated decision, a Supreme Court decision relating to gun safety. There was a District of Columbia ordinance that said that you had to keep your firearm when you were in your home, you had to keep it locked up and unloaded and locked. I'm not sure unloaded, but you had to keep it locked away. And the Supreme Court ruled that you cannot require someone to have their weapon in a place where it was not accessible for their self-defense. And so they said that you could not in all circumstances, well, your home would tell you you cannot have a weapon that is loaded in your home. That still doesn't mean you can't be responsible in making sure if it is loaded and it's accessible to only you and not your children. It still does not say, it's unclear whether or not when you're not in your home, should you be required to have it under lock and key? So if your kids are in and out while you're at work or where you're out of the house. So it's still an untested area, but again, I think the vast majority of the American people are serious and responsible, and I think the vast, overwhelming majority of gun owners are incredibly responsible, and in fact, keeping the weapon, keeping the gun out of the reach of children or strangers is just common sense. And I think you're going to see some initiatives that are going to come along that are going to try to find out the limits of that DC case. And I think there is room that people will be able to legislate, the District of Columbia and other places, to increase the prospects that a loaded weapon is not within the reach of a stranger or a family member who is not competent to use it.